Hi, everybody. Welcome to Star Citizen Live, our weekly behind-the-scenes discussion with developers about the making of Star Citizen and Squadron 42. I'm your host, Posh Jared Huckabee. I just learned that word, posh. I comb my hair, so I'm posh. On the show this week, we have two members from our Steam development team talking about distribution centers, the big, giant microcosms of all FPS-related gameplay in the persistent universe that are coming online in Alpha 3.23. I like that word, microcosm. I forgot that I fed it to you during the ISC interview, and then I used it in my hosting, and then it's like in there twice, and we doubled down on microcosm. Then like one of the comments was like, "What the is microcosm?" And I'm like, "Look it up." So yeah, let's get to our guests. We've got John and James. John and James, how you doing?
Hello.
So you know, every show is somebody's first show. So we're gonna take a few minutes and introduce yourselves, tell everybody who you are and what you do. James, you're in seat number one, so we'll start with you.
One.
James, who are you? What do you do for Star Citizen?
I am James Kay. I am the lead content designer at CIG. We work entirely on the PU, mostly around missions, but also there's some location setup stuff. So we'll do like all the harvestables, the minables, and all the stuff behind the scenes to, I guess, make stuff work generally.
You said the lead content designer. Are you the only one?
Yeah, we've got other designers. We've got other lead designers, but I'm the lead content
You're the
designer.
only lead content designer.
Yeah.
I think curious, I looked at it. I think there's only 3 people in the company that have the word content in their title. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm one of them too.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Did you know that? Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Cool.
The other one's Sean Tracy, so can't be perfect. Why am I giving Sean Tracy trash? Oh, because Forrest is here. John, tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
So hello again. My name's John Griffiths. I'm lead environment artist for EU Sandbox 2, and I've been, I suppose, guiding the ship that is distribution centres into existence, and that's basically been what I've been doing. Yeah.
Reddit, you heard it here first. Distribution centers are a ship, so we'll get stats on that immediately.
It's one on the ground that's huge, that doesn't move, but lots going on.
Okay. You've been working on distribution centers probably as close to the beginning as possible. Am I right? Everybody, there's this thing in development called the product owner. It's the person that's just kind of like, if somebody else isn't around, ask this person, and if a decision has to be made real quickly, go with what this person says until we can all think about it. Are you the product owner for distribution?
I am the product owner for DCs, yeah.
We've never talked about this role, this product owner role, on the show before. What did I get it right? Is there something I left out about what a product owner does?
Yeah, it's a. Is there someone I can speak to about DCs, and they're not on my direct team? The message gets passed on, my name gets passed to them, and then they come into my inbox or on Teams or what have you, and then I have to try and answer whatever question they have. And then at that point, if I can't answer it, I can at least recommend people to go to. But I know the location names, I know what's at each location, I'm the know-it-all to some degree for DCs, which is quite good because, I'm quite, reactive in, I suppose, conversation when stuff needs figuring out quickly. I know where the problem is, but it also means that I have a lot of information in my brain about this thing, and then once it goes out, I can forget all of that.
I was going to say, keep digging, John. It's just, it's the minute it goes out, patch goes out, it's like, okay, on to the next thing. And
Well, I should update the confluence and then,
gosh, I don't think I've seen an updated Confluence since 2014. But All right, so today's show is a Q&A show. That's where we basically put a thread up on Spectrum, which is our bespoke communications platform available at robertspaceindustries.com. We let you submit your questions and then vote up on which ones you wanted to see answer the most. I let John and James collect the questions that they felt they were most capable of answering. As always, some questions just don't have answers at certain points in development. You know, we like to call that's a problem for future us and whatever, but we did collect the questions that we felt we could answer today, and so we'll jump into those. So right off the bat, here's a pretty I like the contentious attitude in this. I'm going to try to read this the way I think this was written. Are these going to be just another copy paste like we have seen with bunkers, or can we expect to see actual variety in the building designs?
Yes, I'll take that one. So, yes and no. So the main form, the main structure, that is going to look the same, but there are feathering assets around each DC to make them all unique, I suppose. Some are going to have quite a large footprint. I mean, it's a big thing on the ground anyway, but there's going to be a bit more of a spread on some of them, and some of them are going to be smaller. But yes, visually, they will be different from the exterior so that you do feel like you're going to a different place each time. Also, we have factions that own each one, and that will be, their branding will be on the building, the name of the place will be different. You know, you'll go into the lobby and the brand, you know, that corporate facing area is going to be branded to that faction, so that will be quite novel, which would be nice. But they are not just a copy and paste of the same, well, even though I just said that. They do feel different, I would say, when you're flying to them, and also they are, you know, some of them are where they are on the on planets. They're next to, you know, interesting features. So hopefully you'll get a recognition of, oh, this is the place on Stanton 1 because it's next to this lovely sea and the sun never goes down. Oh, I know the one you're talking about. I'll meet you there, type of thing, which will be, you know, something that we actually thought about rather than just going one here, one here, one here.
You say Stanton 1, you mean Hurston?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
There's this thing. You know, here's a little actual behind the scenes truth stuff. None of the developers here, there's 1100, 1200, actually know the names of the planets. They all refer to them as Stanton 1, Stanton 1B, Stanton 2, Stanton 3, and it's like I have spent a decade at this place, like trying to suss this out. You mean this planet, right? And I'm like, it's because, you know, there's development.
I would say that the file path is Stanton plus a number. That's why I know it. But on Hurston and Microtech,
yeah,
they'll be released.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. One of the questions, and I think it's in here, but we'll do it now. People have asked where these are going in 323. I think there's approximately 13-ish. Where are they going? Is it just planets? Is it planets and moons?
So in this initial release, it will just be planets. We've considered having them on moons, but due to time constraints, we won't be releasing initially on moons. This is just because we need, well, I believe that the wings should be different when you're in a, like an airless atmosphere.
Right.
You know, the way you're interacting with cargo and moving things around in zero G is going to be different to when you're in gravity. So because we don't have those things yet, we won't be releasing them yet. But so for the moment, for this release, planets only.
Right, and when you say planets, I assume that we can take out Crusader and we can take out ArcCorp. Crusader because there is no surface that we can reach, and ArcCorp because it's not made in the same way that Hurston and Microtech. So these are 13 split amongst Hurston and Microtech for 323.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we expect missions at distribution centers to tie into other professions like salvage, mining, medical, etc., either in 323 or down the line in future patches?
I think down the line, yeah, certainly. I think distribution centers are obviously an enormous location. And they needn't just stand alone on the surface. There's no reason why potentially in the future they could have outlying structures that supply them and house the people that work there. So they could be very large, and with a large population there's a lot of scope for lots of different gameplay. So like salvaging, like mining, expanding the delivery missions and the hauling missions, so they have more variety, more scope. There's tons of stuff to do as well. So it's just like, for me, the 323 release of distribution centers, it's like them in their most basic form. You know, this is where we start. Where we take it in the future, it's, yeah, there's so much.
Yeah, it's the first iteration. We were talking about this before the show. Actually, we were talking about ideas like the distribution center was raided, and like they don't have the ore that they were supposed to have in stock in order to fulfill an order. So they might send you out to go mine this ore and bring it back, and we're just going to put it in the box and pretend like it was always there. Or maybe the distribution center can crank out some kind of detritus, not toxic waste, but some kind of refuse that then needs to be broken down. Like, hey, we could sure use help. Go in the back and and using salvage, break down all this excess garbage that we're producing through whatever. It's like there's definitely opportunities to come up with additional mission types and have it tie into other professions in the future. But for 323, it's basically the four kind of areas we talked about. The Can you remember what they were?
Well, there's the hauling. That's the major one. They're distribution centers after all, so they tie into this new hauling loop. So you're taking massive quantities of cargo between different places. There's all the various what you might call the courier, like the box delivery missions. We're hoping to rework those somewhat. So you're more of a FedEx driver than you are now. So there's scope for those. There's scope for delivery missions just internally. These distribution centers are so large, you can have delivery missions just inside them, like taking the cargo from, like, say, the storage room to the warehouse to the freight terminal to like a little base, like on the perimeters of the center. So there's tons and tons of scope for just, moving stuff around, distributing stuff within the center, you might say.
Oh, you said the word. Yeah, I think there's a lot of focus right now on combat. And stuff, not just with distribution centers and the missions, but master modes and stuff like this. This happens naturally. 323 is, there's no secret. This is the patch where we bring a whole bunch of stuff from Squadron over and bring it into the PU. And I don't think I'm telling any tales out of school to say that a lot of Squadron is very combat, focused. So a lot of these features are going to be very combat focused. Big questions, after yesterday's Master Modes episode, we knew they were coming. So, how does this apply to non-combat ships? There is a healthy and a vibrant and I think very, I don't know, thirsty is not the right word since that has a different connotation, but very hungry type of Star Citizen out there who's looking for more non-combat oriented things to do in the PU. So I think there's a big hope that distribution centers, yes, we'll have some of that in 323, but going forward beyond 323 might evolve to involve more non-combat opportunities. And of course, there were big questions about how PvP and PvE will intermix and everything, and we'll get to that here in a bit. But I think there's a very healthy calling for that right now. And I say this as there's an enormous Idris event going on right now where you can battle and potentially capture the Idris. You should check that out. Go to the robertspaceindustrials.com website and read all about that if you haven't already, because that just started just before the show. But yeah, it's obviously a lot of things are very combat focused right now, but I just want to, I think there's still a very healthy portion of people who are like, I would like to be able to play this game without ever firing a gun if possible. And there's still lots of things we can do to support that and to expand that. Next question. I had never thought about this, but this is kind of obvious. Are abandoned or derelict distribution centers planned?
Not at the moment, but I think going on the fact that there are rundown or abandoned versions of other locations, there's no reason why we couldn't have versions of the DCs which were in the same category.
Yeah.
And then you could then have DCs in like pirate systems like Pyro, for example, where they are kind of up for, maybe it's a bit of a capture the flag type episode on it, but with players, that would be quite cool to have. Who owns this distribution center? Does it change hands a lot? Are you then competing with kind of more established factions in the game? That would be pretty great. But yeah, right now we haven't got plans to do that, but I don't see why we shouldn't do that in the future.
I mean, you're right. We do make abandoned or derelict versions of everything else. It's just, I don't know, things, these brand new things look cool, and then you rough them up and you mess them up, and they just seem just that much more real. So I would be very surprised if the call isn't made at some point.
Yeah, I think, in the first release of anything, he says, thinking about Pyro right now, you need an occupied version. And then when you have that, it's kind of like you've done all the setup already, you're just making new overlays, which then dress it in a certain way. So, the hardest part is the initial release, what we want, but then after that, it's still work to get these things done, but it's not, I suppose, as much work. Hopefully,
I don't know. It's I've seen that when they were making the derelict ships, it's a lot of work to break them up in a way that's not just crap, to be completely fair.
Yeah, I suppose with ships though, it's different because the ship is formed and they have to unform it. Whereas with us, our base rooms already exist. It's just new dressing on top of them.
You put some holes in there.
Yeah.
One of the things that got, when we were showing it at CitizenCon, one of the things that really came through were there are roads in some of these things. Roads have been this, when we talk about the top 10 oldest questions that keep coming up over and over again over the year, roads are one of the big ones. It's, we do have ground vehicles and they're all kind of off-roaders right now. This question says, in the future, is it planned to have distribution centers connected by a road network with smaller outposts or settlements, possibly several kilometers away from in their surroundings?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I don't think, well, I mean, who knows? It could be that there's a motorway from one to the next, but I think it depends on what the next, location is. If that's a big town or what have you, then maybe you have roads within it, but then it kind of turns into dirt roads and then blends back in at the DCs or something like that. It would be cool to have, this is where the DC is, and then 5 clicks this way, there's a small town, 5 clicks this way, it's like an ore depository or something, and then you've got a kind of a link there you could just spend your time just going between the 3 places, grabbing the cash, as it were. But yeah, I don't see why not in the future to have roads. It was interesting, when I did the presentation at CitizenCon, got a big woo for roads, and I was kind of like, okay, didn't know this was a thing. So I'm looking forward to when people, start doing more races, and you actually then have to go through, maybe you have to go into the, oh wait, hold on, no, Sam said, don't get vehicles in there. So maybe you can incorporate some DCs into those races, and then have fun at getting around those corners quickly is all I'm going to say.
Next question here is a bit farther out for stuff, but we'll ask it and see what we get. Will the distribution centers ever be able to be operated and or held by organizations?
Oh, I mean, in the future, I think there's definitely opportunity for that. You could have it so that the organization that operates it is just the initial owner of the location, and then really it could potentially just come down to manpower who can actually defend it. Who owns it is just like, well, who's got the biggest gun?
Yeah, I think if I can, when they talk about operate though, I mean like generate missions or
I see.
is there besides just I want to hold this and nobody else can have it.
Yeah.
Is there room here for the idea that these might be operable, that these might benefit an organization?
I think, I mean, one thing that the resource network might eventually lead into is the opportunity to generate stuff, the distribution center. It could, for example, if it's a Greycat distribution center, it could potentially manufacture things. There's no reason why not. So if there's a player organization out there which essentially owns this facility, then they would have the de facto rights to manufacture that stuff. But then that kind of bleeds into the question of, well, where do they get the materials from? You can't manufacture things out of thin air. So you need a supply chain, and obviously you need these things that you do manufacture, they need to go somewhere. So you need a buyer. So it's this whole supply chain. You're just owning the distribution center is just like one piece of the puzzle,
Well, we're doing a bit of theory crafting here right now.
Yep.
The nickel version of the answer is that there's no plan for it at this point. But we do this. We do the same theory crafting. That's where all ideas start from. That's where all, everything that gets put on the calendar, everything that gets put into development starts with people like us in our room going, well, what if we did this? And wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And then somebody says, okay, somebody taps a producer and a potential product owner and says, all right, build me out a schedule and let's see how much time that would take, how many resources it would take. And then you make the decision about whether that's going to go into active. I know that there are, there are some people who don't like the theory crafting or whatnot. And there are some people like, we're in year 12 or something, and theory crafting. It's because this thing goes. It's not like Star Citizen is not working towards an end. There's not a point where it's like, okay, it's done, it's gone. Like this thing just keeps going. It just keeps building and everything. So I really like that the theory crafting, it doesn't stop. There's always that, well, maybe we can work towards this, and these things help us know what we're working towards. Because one of the other things I really like about working in this place, I'm just going to go off on a tangent here for a second, is I love that we're never afraid of the better idea. So there are plenty of times in our history where we thought we were doing this, like this was the plan. And then somebody in a random conversation is theory crafting, and what if we did this? And it goes, oh, well, that's way cooler than what we were doing. And it's like, well, let's do that instead and whatnot. I love that about this place. So, just as my 5 cents to anybody that's out there that's like, oh, they're just theory crafting, whatever. That's where all the best ideas are birthed. And you guys do it when I watch your YouTube videos and your streams, and we do it too. When I say there's no difference between you and us, I mean that. Will the new UGFs replace or be in addition to existing bunkers? Well, we already know that. That's in addition. The existing.
Yeah. They will remain, and DCs will just be there as well.
It's one of the reasons we replaced the name. Like we were calling these new underground facilities for a while, and it's like, well, it just got confusing. People thought they would replace it. No, we named them because these are in addition. All right, we talked about raids. Now, we talked about raids a little bit at CitizenCon, and we mentioned it at the end of the thing. When we talk about the future of distribution centers, what can you tell us about raids? What's known?
Great question. Well, what's known is we want them to be the end game. So you've done the story or what have you. You've explored your career as much as you want to, and then you can dip into these end game missions, as it were. And this is where you're going to find super rare loot or super high value items, and they're going to take place at DCs which are owned by big corporations or big brands or big factions. And we, like you said before, it was they were the new UGFs, underground facilities, and we still have the idea of, some of them, they do go underground, and that's where the raid takes place. So not only do you have to, fight your way through the airspace of the DC, then realise it's too hot, so land, get your ground vehicles out and approach on foot. You've got to get into the thing and then down into the raid. So they're going to be difficult. They're going to be, expect you to be, A-game people going in. You have your squad all kitted out. Everyone has a role to play. When the resource network comes online, you're going to have to kind of work strategically. I can't really say long words, to try and get in, which is going to be great. And then, what happens when you're in there and reinforcements are getting called in, but you've disabled everything, so it's actually even harder for you to get out. We want it to be tough, but we also want you to be rewarded for doing them as well. So that's kind of the general overview that we want. We now have to go and do that.
I was going to say, I want to be real clear. This is not a 2024 thing. Like anybody's, raids are not a 2024 thing. It's not on the calendar for 2024. And don't even ask me beyond that. It's like, what's the point? But there's this, as Star Citizen continues to develop, as we continue to harden the systems, and it becomes closer and closer to the game that we want it to be. We're going to continuously ask ourselves these MMO related questions. Like we don't want every trapping of every MMO that you ever see out there. We're not trying to be every single game that's ever once. But there are certain tenets and there are certain tropes, if you will, of an MMO space that it's that interest us, that we like and stuff like this, and I can see us trying a few of them. I mean, organizations are just guilds by another name, and stuff like that. So it's not every MMO trope is bad. Some of them are expected. Some of them are frankly necessary to achieve the experience that we want. Raids will be an interesting experiment for us when that time comes, because we don't have health bar, the traditional, a lot of the traditional, class systems and stuff like that. So it'll be an interesting experiment when that time comes, and I'm looking forward to us trying it. Will it work? Will it not work?
Yeah.
Hey, maybe it's going to be a hover mode, maybe it's going to be a master mode. It's like you don't know. It's I like that we try things. So, but again, that's not a 2024 thing.
Yeah, I think additionally to that is I've been harping on about how big these things are on the ground for quite a while, and I just don't think anyone realises how big they are. So I'm really looking forward to them going out and people going, oh, he was telling the truth this whole time. Yeah. But if you think some of the missions that they're going to release with are going to be difficult, and you think, okay, so if this is how hard it is now, just think where we can get to when raids come online. And you think it's big on the ground now, just think of the networks you're going to have to go through to conquer these raids. So just bear that in the back of your mind when these do go out.
So let's move into the big question before we lose your time here. A lot of folks, and we knew this when we were filming it, and this idea that PvE and PvP can meet in the same place. This obviously excites some people. Some people who are a bit more. What was the aggressive outlaw? The aggressive outlaw, unlawful player. Kind of licks their chops at this idea, while the non-aggressive lawful player is like, "What?
Yeah.
Are you dumb?" How do we go about that? How is this? How are these things going to merge? Not just in 323 and what we're doing for 323, but long term. Because obviously, I already know where this is going. All the systems in place are not going to be in place for 323. So talk to me about 323, and then we'll go long term.
Okay. So I think the first thing to bear in mind about distribution centers is they're very varied. So some of them have, some of them will welcome players, some of them won't, but they're also varied in terms of level of security. So some of them will have security at the lower end. If you imagine an extremely well fortified bunker, that's like the lowest level of security for this distribution center. For the highest level of security, you're talking something alongside a rest stop, that kind of level. Lots and lots of turrets, probably a green zone, missile turrets as well. Yeah, they're going to be about as well fortified as we can make them for 323.
Right. So in 323, there's 13 spread across Microtech and Hurston.
Yeah.
My understanding is that they come in kind of three flavors.
Yeah.
What are these 3 flavors?
Okay. So
And these aren't the visual thing. These are. This is what we're talking about: how to manage PvE and PvP.
yeah, this is the broad sort of gameplay kind of flavors. So we've got distribution centers which we're terming friendly. And on the opposite end of the scale, we've got distribution centers which are hostile. And then in between, you have a whole range which are just mixed. There's some combination of all the different factors put together in different levels.
Okay, so what makes a hostile one?
A hostile one, so it's separate to the security level, but a hostile one basically does not welcome players. If you enter, regardless of who you are, what you've done, what your reputation is with any kind of faction, they're going to shoot at you with whatever kind of weaponry they have around. They will have turrets, they will have trespass zones, they will have security guards all over the place. Yeah, that's a hostile one.
It's like Chris when he sees me coming.
Okay.
What's the other? What's the friendly?
The friendly ones are much more welcoming. They will allow players in, kind of, as long as they have a neutral reputation with the owner, they will allow players in, and you can just go in, you can land, you can request landing access, you can get in the hangar, you can walk around, no restrictions, no holds barred, just go wherever you please, no problem.
And my understanding is that in 323, these have an additional layer of security.
Yeah, so the friendly ones are going to be more towards the rest stop level of security.
So with green zones.
With green zones.
All right. So there will for 323, because we don't have the full law and order system.
It's
that
a
we're
stop.
working towards.
Yeah.
Some of these distribution centers will have a green zone.
Yep.
And that'll protect the players who those lawful, unaggressive players.
Yep.
It's like, oh, well, if I'm going to take a mission, I don't think we'll outright tell them which is which. It's one of those things we like people to discover on their own. But you'll discover, okay, missions to this distribution center and this distribution center are safe. It's I can go there. I can be a lawful, unaggressive player and not get harassed and stuff like that. And then there's the super aggressive where it's just I just want to be a pain in the ass for somebody and go. And then there'll be the collection of ones in between.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And that is, of course, until until the law and order system continues to evolve. Players saw it in the Pyro playground and stuff. Some of these stations were supposed to have faction-oriented NPC guards that are supposed to stop griefing and stuff. That's all part of this law and order system. That's still being developed and still coming online. Additional evolutions to the law system. You're involved in the law. Generally speaking, you're involved in the criminal. What's it called? The law system, the criminality.
Underworld?
What word am I looking for?
I'll say it underworld.
The system that determines whether you're a criminal or not.
Justice?
No, do we not have a name? I can't think of the name for it. I'm spacing right now. I'm sorry, guys. But this crime stat, the crime stat system, and everything, even that's going to evolve. To the point of having harder crime stats and crime stats that don't entirely wipe away and stuff.
Yeah.
So or you got rid of your crime stat, but there's a database that still remembers that you had one, and if you start getting too many of them, it's like, maybe you're just a permanent criminal.
Yeah.
Perks.
I think there's a drive to make it make the security side quite more, how can I put it, robust in their pursuit of justice and quite more persistent in it. And once you are caught, to make the punishment more severe and fitting. So it's not flat.
No.
It scales.
And I want to say what we're talking about right now is not the theory crafting stuff that we talked about before. There is actually there's actually a very detailed law and order, kind of plan in place. Things that we're working towards. I can't tell you what patch, 1 patch, 2 patch, 3 patch, 4 patch, from now or whatever, whenever it's ready and online. But there is obviously we see what happened. We saw what happened in Pyro Playground. We can see what's happening in a lot of these places with griefing and stuff like this. And there are many things in place that we want to attempt. People will then naturally ask, well, why don't you just tell us about it? Because we need to try things. We need to try this, and if that doesn't work, then we're going to try this. And if that doesn't work, you're going to try this. You don't just have like one idea. You have an A idea, a B idea, a C idea, and you want to test these things. We just sit there and say we're going to do this, and then we end up not going with A and going with C. And like, well, you told us you were going with A. Well, A didn't work. We had to test it first. So let us continue to do some refinement and work on it. And I promise, like all things, considering that it's literally my job to do so, we will inform and share the design and the intention of it when we feel that it's ready to be done so. But I just want to say that's not the theory crafting. That's on the calendar and stuff. So.
Quick question about
Sure.
that.
Oh, you can't have questions. That's not how the show works.
If, say I'm hauling to a friendly DC and I'm worried that I'm going to get attacked by pirates, in between doing my bit at the DC and going to the other location like a space station, can I theoretically message out to see if anyone can protect me in transit and then maybe offer up some of the goods as payment? Because we don't have the system yet to do that, but there's an opportunity for players to potentially build some trust with one another.
Yeah. Well, we have the service beacon system that allows some aspect of that and stuff like that. And of course, that's going to continue to iterate and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just putting it out there, people.
We do tend to like player-oriented solutions whenever possible. All right, so yeah, that's about it, guys. That's all the time I had for you. Thank you for taking the time out of the end of your week to this. Yeah. James was literally in a call until about 10 minutes before the start of the show, and we had to rush him over here. He was literally presenting to other directors in the company about the current state of this and where it was at and what we still needed to do and stuff like that. In case you think my show is the priority, it's not. Making the game is. So I do appreciate you rushing over here to do the show. Yeah. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to have an old friend. That made him sound like he's really... That made it sound like you're super old. He's not super old. I think he's actually younger than I am. He's just been with the project for about as long as any human being. He's here visiting. We're going to have him on the show and talk to him for a little bit. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we're back. Joining us on the show now for our Meet the Devs section is somebody, and I don't know how accurate I was right. I'm pretty sure you're like employee number 2 or 3 or something like this. What's your title now? It's
Principal Technical Artist.
Principal Technical Artist, Forrest Stephan. Forrest, how you doing, man?
Good, great. Thanks for having me on the show.
You've been, like I said, I don't want to oversell this, but I don't know that I can. You're literally, there was a point in this company where it was Chris, Sandy, Ortwin, you, like
and a couple others like David Haddock and Zane, and just a handful of people. And
when the company was less than 10 people, you were here.
Yeah, just less than the fingers on my hands. Yeah.
So welcome. Your title now is Principal Technical Artist.
Yeah.
You're one of those.
Technically an artist.
Yeah, technically an artist. You're one of those people. We'll talk a little bit about what a technical artist is, but yeah. I don't think it accurately covers what you do, because you're. Right. I always felt a kinship with you because you're kind of. Ben used to call me fix-a-flat. It was you're here for when we need something done, but we don't have a specific person for it.
Yeah.
Give it to Jared and see if he can do it. Give it to Forrest and see if he can do it. And I saw that with you, and I always just kind of, I don't think we ever really talked about it, but I always kind of like, he's like me, but on the other side. It's whenever there's something weird and random, it's like there's no obvious person to do it. you're the guy they tap.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we both, love working for Chris. So if he needs something and he has some kind of vision, we just hop on that thing and we just drive it until we accomplish it. And it's always been like that since the very beginning.
Okay. So what is a technical artist?
So a technical artist will a lot of times bridge the gap between an engineer and an artist. So the artist will make the art content and will make all this really amazing stuff. And then the engineers will write all of the, kind of back-end tools and work on the engine and just give us the ability to do these amazing things that we get to play. But there's this like in-between thing that happens where the artists need to interface with this code that the engineers write. And so what a technical artist will do sometimes is they'll write scripts to help interface with some of the more back-end code, whether it is you're in your 3D program and you need to export something, or we need to maybe make something faster so the artist can make more content at kind of a faster rate. Or sometimes it's just, things could get complicated and we're trying to figure out, wait, how do we do this? And so, it could be as simple as, how do we make an explosion, or, how do we get this helmet to look as awesome as possible? And so a lot of times we'll take the vision from Chris or a director, and then we'll be like, can we do this? Can we hit the benchmark that we want to hit? And sometimes we can and sometimes we can't. And if we can't, we'll step in, we'll figure out how to make it faster, we'll figure out how to make it better, and we'll train up artists, we'll help write documentation. And so our job a lot of times is to help artists be successful, but at the same time, really embrace the engineer tools and be able to make sure they reach the full capacity of what they're able to do.
Good answer.
Oh, thank you.
A little known, we actually filmed an entire episode trying to explain what technical artist was one time back in like 2019. And it's one of the only episodes that have never aired. Because I'm like, I don't think we got it. It's a pretty good answer. Go back to the beginning now, because this part of the show is we're talking about you and your history, and I'm a big history nut, and I like to. We've moved so far from where we started, but I don't want to ever lose that.
Yeah.
There's some people like humor me for a second. When did you come aboard the project?
I came aboard the project in the spring of 2012.
The spring of 2012. So before we announced.
That's correct.
And what was your job in the spring of 2012?
My job was anything and everything. If it needed to be lit, I would lit it. If there needed to be particles, do some particles. If I needed to optimize an asset, optimize an asset. If I needed to make an asset, I would make an asset. We had a pretty clear vision of what Chris wanted to do for the initial crowdfunding campaign, but we didn't have funding yet. And I was young and I was cheap, and I would do anything, to work on a project like this. And I was like, Chris asked me if I was willing to work on it. And of course he was like, hey, do you know, I knew how to do some things. I was an environment artist,
yeah.
But he's like, hey, do you know how to light? Do you know how to do this? Do you know how to do that? And I was like, yeah, of course I do. I can do all that. Yeah, no problem. And he goes, all right, you're hired. And then I got off the phone and I just started Googling YouTube on how to do all these things.
That is exactly how I started. All right.
Make it till you make it.
So at this point in the spring of 2012, how many people were on the project? That you can remember?
I want to say that there was probably, I was working with David Haddock a lot. There's probably 5 or 6, honestly. That was, but we also had, because we were, working with, CryEngine. So I had access to, people that were like Sean Tracy.
Yeah. Who wasn't actually an employee yet. He was moonlighting.
Yeah, exactly. So I had a lot of interactions with these really talented, experienced people with these tools. And so while internally, we had a very limited staff of nobody, you know what I mean? But we did have some resources to help, get the trailer out the door, obviously.
There's this belief out there that when people talk about how long Star Citizen's been in development, I see it often cited or referred to that, oh well, they were working on it for a whole year before they were doing this, or it was 1,100 people back then. No. 5 people
Yeah.
were working on it, for the time period before it got out, and some of them were only hired in that same year.
Yep.
It's like this, and it wasn't making the game; it was making this demo, this video demo for.
Yeah, it was a vertical slice is what we were calling it. We were like, what is the game, and can we create a small section of what that game could potentially be? And we knew that we didn't want it to be an offline render. We knew that we wanted to build everything in engine, and we wanted the thrusters physically firing, which Chris was working on and coding and stuff like that. And so we just, we wanted to see, can we really make this thing? And one thing that was very clear after the demo of the trailer is we knew we could. Yeah. And luckily the fans believed in us too.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. That obviously when we debuted on October 10th in 2012, we played a video. We're there at GDC. We don't have the infrastructure to do a live demo thing. But the fact that, even at that point, he wanted it all created in engine.
Yes.
It's we may have recorded it, but it had to work. It had to be physicalized. It had to function like we were representing it.
It worked. It just, it didn't have the frame rates yet.
Fair enough. Yeah. Some things never change.
60 frames per second. Otherwise, what's the point, right?
We're working on it. Someday. All right. So, how did you said Chris asked you, what is this? Was it like a Craigslist ad? How did you and Chris get connected?
My old boss was had worked with him in the past, and then the company that I worked for lost the funding. And so I was unemployed. And so, Chris was talking to, his peer and coworker and friend, and who happened to be my ex-boss, and told him about the project. And so he said, I know this kid that doesn't have a job, and he'll do, he'll go for it. You know what I mean? So with that recommendation, I got the phone call, and I did not expect it. It came out of absolutely nowhere. I'm at my friend's house, and I get this call, and it's like, it's Chris Roberts, and I'm like, shut the dogs up, everybody be quiet. Chris Roberts is on the phone, and everyone's like, yeah, right. You know what I mean? And sure enough.
You knew who he was?
I knew who he was, yeah. Well, I knew who he was because I was a big fan of the Mark Hamill and all that from the Wing Commander games. And so I thought the Wing Commander games were fun, but I was really into the fact that we had full motion video in a game. And I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. And obviously I like Star Wars, so I was like drawn to it. And so when I knew that, I was like, oh my gosh, like here we go. Like this is gonna be a 3D version of that.
Yeah. And now you've been with the project for 12 years.
That's right, yeah. So am I allowed to say my age on here? I don't know.
You can do whatever.
So I was talking, I was walking around the office, and I was kind of like, and somebody was like, yeah, they're telling me they're getting old, they're like, I'm 30, you know what I mean? I was like, well, if it makes you feel any better, I'm 40, and I've been working on this game since I was 28.
So have things changed? I know the answer to this, but I'm curious about your perspective. We didn't get any chance to sync before this, so we're going from your perspective, because you've been here.
Yeah.
Literally since the beginning.
Yeah.
How have you seen things change?
Well, here's to me what the biggest change between then and now. Back then we had to figure out what to do. And a lot of things were like, is this even possible, right? And it was just one hurdle at a time. And it's hard to figure out, how long is something going to take, because it's never been done before, right? So how do you schedule it? You know what I mean? But now we know, we're confident. We know what needs to be done. We know how to do it, and now we're finishing things. And that's the biggest difference between before we were figuring it out and now we're doing the darn thing.
Yeah. It's hard because it's again, there's no sense in acting or pretending like we've had a great track record predicting
it's hard.
Dates and stuff like this. It always comes. I knew this before, in my time at Blizzard, but it really the knowledge crystallized here. If you're doing something, let me rephrase this differently. All estimation, regardless of what it is, whether it's building a swimming pool, I used to be a swimming pool contractor way back in the day, laying gunite, plumbing and stuff. All estimation in any field is based on prior work.
Exactly.
So if you can tell how long a thing takes with certainty, you're de facto doing something that's been done before.
And it's an average of how long it's taken in the past. So not only is it has to be do once, you have to do it multiple times. Yeah. And then the more times you do it, the better you can average how long this thing takes.
Yeah. So that's a good point. So not only has it been done before, but it's had to have been done several times before to have an accurate
Exactly.
If you're truly doing something that's never been done before,
Yep.
or doing something that has been done before, but in a way that's never been
Yep.
used to do it, getting an accurate estimate is practically impossible.
You're trying to make your best educated guess.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, and I'm not sitting here trying to make excuses for us. I mean,
No, of course
historically,
not.
one of the things I go to Bar Citizens. In fact, there's a Bar Citizen in Manchester, not this Saturday, but next Saturday at Brewdog. At 3 p.m. Brewdog in Manchester at 3 p.m. If you're in the area or you want to be in the area, you want to attend, do that. But one of the questions that comes up more times than not when I'm at these things is people ask me, when is this or when is that?
Sure.
Or they try to
Hashtag
and,
soon.
Yeah, and it's like one of the reasons we stopped answering this question is because we recognize that we have many strengths.
Yeah.
Our strengths are in our people.
Yep.
Our strengths are in the quality and the character of the people. I do what I do here because of how much I like the people that I work with. It's like this. It's in our technology. It's in our innovation. It's like this. Our strength is not knowing when a thing is going to come out.
But you know what that does? It creates a game that's never been created before.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not trying to make any excuses for it. It's just it's recognize where our strengths
Well, it's just
are.
the reality is that's just what it is, right? And I think a Chris project, you're always going to have innovation, so you're always going to have some element of that. But at the same time, because we've had now done things before, we are much better at understanding a schedule and how to follow it.
He does have this, but we're going to just turn this into a jibing about Chris here. He does have this habit of asking if there's another way a thing can be done.
Sure.
It's like, well, okay, we want to do this thing. All right, well, that's how these people did it, and that's how those people did it. How can we do it? Is there a way? That's as good as that they were able to do. Is there a way to do it better?
Yeah.
Is it just that they didn't spend the time? Is it just that they didn't figure it out? Or is it just that the technology didn't exist to do it better when they did it, and maybe it does now? Or maybe we're in a place where we can create it. So he's never. This isn't where I thought the show was going to go. He's never very interested in the easy way or the obvious way. He always challenges people to find a better way, to find a more interesting way to do something. And I think that's why so many of the weird things either fall on your plate if it's tech or fall on my plate if it's not. And it's just, I like that about this place.
Yeah, I mean that's my favorite thing, and obviously I've been working here for a long time. There's a reason that I've been working here for a long time, and it is that challenge. I mean, the reality is, it's like you don't really say like something's impossible, right? It's just a matter of you got to try it. And he was willing to take that gamble and have somebody like me, or there's so many talented people in this company. He's willing to challenge them and be like, you don't know if it won't work because you haven't tried, so try it. And that's why I love that.
We only have a few more minutes, and I've got you here. And folks, if you're wondering, Forrest is here visiting. As always, meeting with the teams and stuff like this. So whenever we have these visitors, I always try to make the chance to find some time for them. And we haven't spent much time with each other.
We're busy.
Do you have any? We had John Erskine and Mike Jones on a couple weeks ago doing something similar to this. Do you have any stories? When I say, can you think of a funny or a terrifying story from yay old days? It's not going to get either one of us fired.
I think they would all get us fired. I mean, we just, back then, it was just so fun, but like difficult. I mean, when I was in the Austin office, we were basically in a house, and our offices were just, like hallways. So we used to, when you would walk down the hallway, there would be a desk in the hallway. So if the programmer or artist would back up their chair, they'd be back into you and you'd pin you against the wall, and so we just had a lot of good times there, and now we're in this, amazing spaceship with 1,000 devs or whatever, and it's quite different, but it's special in its own way, and back then it was special in its own way.
I'll narrow this down for you. So let's go back to that 2012 demo.
Yeah.
That prototype presentation. Any particularly trying or vexing moment from that?
Yeah, totally. So, and I did this on my own accord. I'm not trying to, say that a company making me work too hard or whatever, but I remember, and I'll kind of blame the backers for this one I'll go ahead and explain myself now. But once we did the crowdfunding campaign and the funding started coming in, one thing that we wanted to do was we wanted to keep delivering content, because we felt that if they were going to continue to give us money, we needed to give them content. So David Haddock would keep writing new systems and new planets and descriptions. And I would do renders of the planets and kind of give a visual representation to go with the story and to go with the lore. And we decided every $50,000 we would post another system that was backed. And the backers were giving money so quick that we were not able to create things fast enough, and we were just working around the clock because they were like, hit another milestone, let's get another thing going, let's get another thing going. And it was taxing, to say the least.
Yeah, that desire to provide, like they're providing to us, so we want to reciprocate as much as possible.
Yeah.
It goes all the way back. I'm gonna speak on behalf of Wingman.
Yeah.
Now, for those who don't know, these programs that we do today, Inside Star Citizen and Star Citizen Live, go all the way back to in a genesis to the efforts of Eric Wingman Peterson and Michael Moreland, who were out of the Austin offices. And originally, that was just supposed to be a monthly. It was supposed to be one show a month. That's it. And and that alone is more than any other game studio with only 20 employees would ever do. Yep. But because that kept because the support kept coming in, there was this, well, no, we've got to do more. We've got to provide more stuff. So he took it upon himself to turn that into a weekly thing, even though we had only ever committed to a month. And that continues. That continued from him up through Ben and Sandy and around the verse, through me now. Yeah. It's like this. We were never on the hook for a weekly thing, but it was just we had only ever committed to a monthly thing, but it was just this. Man, when you see this level of support, you want to give back in whatever way you can.
What you're doing, you know what I mean? So you want to share it with the people that are as excited as you are. You know what I mean? And to be honest, like nowadays, there's a lot of game studios that are bringing you inside, but back then that wasn't a very common thing. And I felt like when we were doing that, it was very kind of groundbreaking.
Yeah, and not weekly.
Definitely, no, definitely not. No way.
No, weekly, and then
no way.
The Thursday show evolves into this docu-series, and then he goes and adds, Thursday's not enough. We're also going to do a Friday live stream. Yep. These are the legacies that I've inherited, and I've inherited them proudly. And yes, they age me prematurely. I'm only 23. This is what happens. but no, it's just. I always try to keep that. I always try to remember that. It's always been about this deep-seated appreciation of that level of support and that continuing support, and it's why we it's why we put as much effort into making ISC every week. Why we put less effort into making this show.
Yep.
I mean, again, I'm not going to lie to you. This show's what it is. But. Sorry. I can throw myself in a while, but it's because it's this reciprocity, it's this feeling of ownership that we have, so like that. Beyond that, any news, any fun stuff, any gossip I haven't heard? We got 1 minute left. What you got for me?
Well, the first thing is just going down this road. Thank you for all the fans that have been with us for 12 years. I mean, my goodness, right? And they're out there, you know what I mean? Besides that, I'm still working. I'm still doing my thing. I'm working on heads. We're, working on character creators, and we're just trying to get these characters looking so awesome in the verse. And we got some, hashtag soon things coming, and it's exciting, and I'm excited, and we're going to keep going.
And we'll be talking about the character customizer in Alpha 323. I think it's scheduled 4 or 5 weeks from now in ISC. I was just talking to Sean Tracy about it yesterday and stuff like that. So we want to get a few more things in there before we show it to you. But yeah, Forrest, thank you for taking the time to be here. Folks, that does it for this week's Star Citizen Live. Thanks for watching. If you haven't, check out yesterday's Inside Star Citizen about master modes and precision targeting and all the gimbal changes and all the archetypes and stuff. That went out yesterday. And of course, we are taking next week off for Star Citizen Live. I'm mixing my messages now. I was talking about ISC now. So next week we're taking a Friday off. It's Dune Part 2 day at the office. I'm not going to lie to you. The whole office is going to see Dune 2. So I'm like, I'm gonna go see Dune 2. So no SCL next week, but when we come back the week after, we'll have Yogi and members from that team on to answer many of your questions that you had after yesterday's Master Modes episode. We booked it in before the episode went live. We knew they were coming. So you look out for that in about 2 weeks. And then going on right now in the verse is the I don't know what the official name of it, this Idris event that's going on, where a bunch of CIG developers are spawning Idrises in the Precision universe and challenging you to take it from them. Some folks are like, the first folks I saw were just going after the store. It's like, no, you can capture this thing and fly it around. It's got the interior and everything. It's a chance for you to see how long you can hold on to an Idris before other people come and try to take it away from you. So that's going on right now. And next week in Inside Star Citizen, we'll be doing a special director's commentary version of development on the Idris with Nate Dearsley and John Crew, who will take you through the interior and show you what its current status is and stuff like that. So you can check that out next week. So for Star Citizen Live, I'm Jared. That was Forrest. Again, thanks to John and James, who took off and went back to their meetings. And we'll see you next week, everybody. Take care.